Okay, so these are some LOTO locks that I have in my collection. Three different manufacturers. These are all essentially Pin Tumbler locks. And let's pick one with a decent bidding. There we go. So what you're going to notice about these LOTO locks and several others is they have a dead core. So essentially there's no resistance in turning the key, and it does retain the key when the lock is open. So essentially the lock has to be locked shut to remove the key. These are the Master Lock series, and they come in the different colors. So what I find on these also is each one of these keys has a different number on it to identify this particular locking key. I also have the Trade Suite with the same. It has the same type of dead core. It also has the key retention. What I do find interesting on some of these trade safe locks is they have an identification number on them, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, and the number on the key corresponds with the number on the lock. So there we go. Now, Abus makes their LOTO locks, and essentially what's different about these, other than the rubber shackle on them, they do have a spring loaded core. They do have a unique identifier number on there. They also are key retaining, just like the other locks are. So these are the 7440s that Abus makes. On to the next. So here are some examples of a Dimple lock based LOTO lock. Again, what you're going to find here, they have the identification number on there, and it does match the key to match it up with the key. It does have the same type of dead core, and it does have the same key retaining aspect, but they are Dimple locks. They're not terribly challenging to get into, but for let's say a beginning Dimple lock picker, they might offer them some ability to train and work with Dimple locks. There's not much more to say about these. These are by Bovisky, and they have the Bovi name stamped into the locks. Okay, these are a little bit different. They're also considered Pin Tumbler locks, but essentially the way they work is the key pushes the pins down to specific heights, just like a pin tumbler, and essentially allows you to. It's 6 pins total, allowing the lock to open. What's interesting about these LOTO locks that makes them very different from the previous ones I showed you, one, these are all metal for starters. What it does not do is it does not retain the key when the lock is open. So they're considered LOTO locks, but that is one thing that they do different. Now, on the actual key, they have the identification number on the key in order to correspond with this lock. Interesting little locks. All right, last but not least in my collection of locks, what you're going to, these are LOTO locks that have the same type of identification numbering that match up with the keys. And what you'll notice also is these are slider locks. Now, as far as when the shackle is open, they are key retaining. They do have a dead core, like many of the others do. tricky little locks to get into, and fun to learn sliders on, if you want to be able to get your first entry into picking slider locks. Last but not least, I wanted to share these. These are typically used in lockout tagout situations as well, and they can be used for other things too, but essentially this locks around your control so that it can't be engaged, for example, or it could go through something else that essentially, you know, locks a latch from opening and so forth. But what's interesting about these is it allows multiple people to essentially lock up a switch or some kind of lever or whatever, so that basically it requires both people to remove their locks before whatever that's locked up in this can be engaged. Thought I would share that if you've hopefully found that interesting.